Welcome to Michigan in Focus. I'm Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for the Center Square. Joining me today is Scott McClallan, the Center Square reporter for Michigan, Minnesota, and wherever he's needed. He's our man about town. Scott, one of the things that you've been covering, and you've been doing a bang-up job on it, is the massive subsidies that are being given to a giant mega corporation, the Ford Motor Company. And it turns out that we taxpayers are coughing up almost $1.8 billion at last count to create 2,500 jobs, which works out to, about $700,000 per job created. And at the same time, we're looking at these jobs, 2,500 jobs, they're all going to make $45,000. They're going to be $45,000 a year engineering jobs. I mean, is that correct? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, the average of the 2,500 jobs comes out to be about $45,136.
Okay, well, let's back up a little bit and give us a little bit of history about what the BlueOval Battery Park is, where it's going to be, when it's supposed to open, how much is it going to cost, all told. I mean, I think we're putting up about $1.8 billion, but this is like a $3.5 billion plant in Marshall, Michigan.
Yeah, the $3.5 billion factory aims to drop the cost of electric vehicles via lithium ion phosphate batteries. And the goal of the plant is to pump out 2 million electric vehicles by 2026. Currently, only 25,181 electric vehicles are registered in Michigan. So they're really aiming for a moonshot with this factory that, at least $1.7 billion will be funded by taxpayers.
I laugh because, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but I guess I'm trying to rein in my skepticism, which is, the first class that you take when you go to college and you're studying journalism is like how to be a skeptic, if not just a full-blown cynic. When they first announced that there was going to be all of these subsidies given to Ford Motor Company, I think we've all heard about Ford Motor Company and that they're not a small company. I mean, they're just, for many reasons, they were considered to be part of the big three for decades. So here we have one of the largest automakers in the world taking massive amounts of money from the state to build an EV plant or an EV battery plant. They announced this, and then the day after, Ford has this announcement that they're going to do a stop order and a stop delivery of shipments that are en route because the batteries in their Ford F-150 Lightning EVs are malfunctioning. Not the ones that were already on dealer lots, not the ones that are already on the road. I want to be very fair and I want to be very clear about that. But they just shut those down. And that was on February 15th. Here we are recording this on March 2nd, and it is just today that they announced that they will resume shipping the Lightning F-150 EVs, I believe, on March 13th.
One aspect of this that really confused lawmakers that I talked to is that whenever Governor Gretchen Whitmer first announced this factory, her news release said that taxpayers would foot $1 billion toward the factory. But 9 days later, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation casually asked lawmakers for $750 million more dollars. So, I mean, that's almost doubling the taxpayer costs.
Right, because it sounded like someone forgot that, when you build a plant in an area of Michigan that is more or less rural, you really have to build out the infrastructure that doesn't exist there yet. So it's like, oops, our bad. We got to come back to the trough and get a little bit more scratch so that we can finish this job. And so that's what they did. But you have looked at the bill that was passed by the House and the Senate. And there was also a couple of issues, and it ties into the battery plant that's being built in Big Rapids, too. And that is, there is a collaborative effort between Ford and a Chinese company. And, things are not exactly cozy between the U.S. and China right now. And Goshen, which is building the battery plant in Big Rapids, that's a full-born Chinese-owned company. And we gave them a bucket full of money as well so that we can claim that we're creating jobs here in Michigan and turning Michigan into the desired epicenter of all things electric vehicles here in Michigan, like we were when we were at the pinnacle of the automotive industry in the 20th century.
Yeah, Ford is saying that its relationship with CATL is, Ford is saying that the company is only a technical service provider, but still Michigan lawmakers have a lot of questions, specifically because under Chinese law, the Chinese companies have to forfeit information to the government. So in both this Ford factory and the Goshen plant in Big Rapids, that has been a big hang up for a lot of people.
Right. And again, there is a major difference between Ford and the Chinese company, CATL. They are not receiving a dime. CATL is not receiving a dime of any taxpayer subsidies whatsoever. However, Goshen is. So just to make that clarification clear, because I don't want to cause any consternation with the individuals who have been supplying us with information from Ford, because they've been very forthcoming, and that is appreciated. So we're having difficulty finding out if any of there was a $15 million that was originally earmarked for a certain rail company. Maybe you can fill us in on that, Scott.
Yeah, it was earmarked to the Norfolk Southern Rail Line, and the $50 million was for rail line improvements, and that's the same rail line whose cars derailed in East Palestine.
Right. We're not really sure if that was jettisoned. I've read some news releases from Republican lawmakers in Lansing, and they say that it did include it, but now they have they're being a little bit cagey about this because they're not really telling specifically. So now there's just going to be this big pool of money, and then when they give it out, maybe the heat will be off the Norfolk Southern. So I don't know, and frankly, I'm not sure anybody really knows outside of the individuals who are in the smoke-filled room somewhere in the Lansing Capitol.
Yeah, I'll keep trying to find out, though.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Scott McClallan, this is Bruce Walker. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.
Freedom and liberty are important to all of us. If you're looking for civil, intellectual conversations with those shaping the future of freedom, try the Future of Freedom podcast with me, Scott Bertram. We speak with leaders across the country in the greater conservative and libertarian movements. In-depth conversations about where the next intellectual battles will happen across the country. It's the Future of Freedom podcast. Find it at americastalking.com or wherever you get your podcasts.